Back now, as the country appears to be getting a handle on the COVID-19 pandemic, another silent one has been lurking, and experts say it has gotten significantly worse. The mental health crisis is one that has persisted, with 1 in every 4 Kenyans suffering from a mental illness at one point in their lives. This, in some cases, escalates to suicide, which ranks Kenya 29th globally in terms of prevalence. I had a conversation with military psychologist, retired Major Wairimu Mukuria, who has extensive experience in trauma work and has been active in mental health policy work. Also part of the discussion is Philip Ogola, a mental health advocate and UN Foundation Global Social Good Champion, who runs a suicide prevention campaign called #ItCouldBeYou. Here is that conversation. I find it quite ironic that I was with you two this time last year when we're talking about suicide prevention. Of course, very different circumstances now with a global pandemic. It has complicated the situation and response around suicide and mental health in general in this country. It's interesting that a year on, we're still having issues with numbers and monitoring just how bad the situation is. However, you two work in that space and you've seen how things have escalated. Let me begin with you, Major, in terms of the state of suicide prevention and just what you've been seeing and hearing from patients during this time. And if you're going to make a comparison to last year, if you will.
I don't know whether I can call it a frustration or it's an observation, because there's been so much talk about being able to arrest the runaway mental illness situation in this country. And the only people who seem to think is an emergency are the practitioners and the sufferers. But everybody else, I think, is allowing things to happen in an organic fashion, if I may call it that, but I think it needs some escalation. And it takes me back to a study that I came across that was done between 1975 and 1979, right? By a gentleman called Onyango Philister for his PhD qualification. I don't know where he is today, but he actually did a study on the state of suicide in this country. I was not born in that period, but I read that paper, and what was true then, which is 40 years ago, is true now. That study has even specific periods of the year when people successfully, take their own lives, which period people attempt to take their lives, literally. And he broke it down to even gender. He mentioned it very well. Poverty was one of the things that was pushing people to the brim. He talked about poor family support, because he even went as far as looking at how the African culture plays a part in people's deteriorating mental health. So we're talking about poverty. Where are we right now? He talked about nutrition. In his study, he says those times where people could not access food that had high calories. And it's true, the brain is affected and people's thinking process diminishes. That's when people were. So we have to be able to make all these considerations of diet, of exercise, and that's why everybody needs to be involved. What can we be able to do to stem people's mental health deteriorating?
Let me bring Philip in, because you have a campaign that has been running for a good year now. Yeah. It could be you. Yeah. And from what you've seen, the cases that you've been dealing with, what are some of the common issues that people are dealing with that would drive them to considering taking their lives?
The most glaring factor right now, parents are not present. Families are not present. So most of these youth actually now go online to actually seek help. And social media has become toxic. So you go online seeking support, you get people bullying you, trolling you, supporting you, now pushing you further into your dark realm. As digital humanitarian, we've seen a spike of the role of social media in mental health. And also we've seen a spike of spousal, domestic kind of driven kind of mental health, where you find Couples are fighting. COVID has really now compounded the situation where you find people have lost jobs. People have their houses have been locked. Like the case of a mother who wanted to kill four of her children because of she hadn't rent arrears of 6 months, no job, anything. So she was like, let me kill myself. So we talked to her for a whole night. Right now, she's actually thanks. So I think as a country, we need to listen to each other. Right. Let's create space where we can reach out to our friends.
One of the issues attached to suicide is you're just an attention seeker. How do you kind of go beyond that thought or that perception of people who have suicidal thoughts or just suicidal? And I guess you can also speak to just other myths that surround this whole space of suicide.
But I want to tell you something, Victoria. As human beings, we are naturally attuned to preserve our lives. That is our instinctual reaction. If that is why we always have defensive motions when we feel our physical boundary is threatened. It is instinctual to want to preserve your life. So if you come across an individual who does not instinctively want to actually preserve their lives, but wants to take their life away, they want to literally leave a body behind, understand something. That person is not in their right mind. By the time somebody is making the decision to actually make attempt on their lives, they are psychotic. You understand? Yeah. We are not rationing at the same level. Because there is no rationale to what they are doing. They are going against a very natural instinct. So this idea that somebody is seeking attention, that is the thing people say to comfort themselves for something they don't understand. But the truth of the matter is, as somebody who has dealt with suicide up close and personal, that person is deeply psychotic. And that's why you don't even reason with them. You get them immediate emergency care. That's why even as they are treated and they're coming out of it, they need to be sedated for a while so that they can be able to have that balance of brain chemicals. Because there is that huge imbalance where you're not rational. So I just want to really dismantle, destroy, eviscerate this idea that people who make attempts on their lives are seeking attention.
So when they're on the recovery path, they've gone through treatment, they're back home, how then do loved ones, family interact with them? Because the thought at times is, if I bring up suicide, it will trigger them again, or it will take them back down that dark path. How do you begin to interact with them?
First of all, you need to realize one thing. It destabilizes the entire family. We need to own that first. And I think I want to say that maybe we need to start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you cannot maintain the same sort of momentum, even in the family, that was there before an incident like that happened. It's a critical incident in the family. So expect to be scared, expect to be unsure, expect to feel like you're walking on eggshells, expect all these things, expect to feel angry at the person, expect to feel resentment at the person. All I'm saying is own everything that you're feeling. Don't numb it out, don't dismiss it, don't ignore it, don't act like it doesn't exist, don't invalidate it. Because I think being able to experience normal human emotions is the one thing that I really want us to open our hearts to. Because it's the only way we can also be able to experience the good things about being a human being, the positive and good emotions. But we have to also be open to the nasty, bad, sad, bland, black emotions. So one of the things that people need to understand is that you need to own all those feelings that come with that. And you also need to understand, and this is for families, this is really for families. Families think because we are related, we will sort out this mental problem. No, you will not. Get a professional.
Yeah.
I always say to people, when somebody even is recovering from heart surgery and they are brought home, do you say, now I can start continuing to clean that wound? No. You get a nurse who comes and does that. Right. because you're not competent.
Yeah.
So we need to give the same dignity to like mental illness as we give to all kinds of illnesses, because they are all sheltered under one body.
When you're looking at how our healthcare system is structured, and even in terms of mental health care, you know, the perception out there is it's expensive, it's exclusive, it's for the people who can afford that kind of attention or care. But if you're thinking about someone living in a low-income area, going through the same kind of symptoms and issues, can they just walk into an institution? Mathare Hospital has gotten such a negative rap, unfortunately, but gives such good care. And Philip, if you can just speak to that in terms of the options that exist out there.
There's so much ignorance in our societies, and I just want to echo what you said about family setups. I think most families do not know that Mathare is the cheapest option to actually get mental psychiatric help. If you have an HIF, you can actually get free admission, as in terms of medication and everything. HIF is 5 SOC, it's actually 5 SOC a month. In terms of therapy at Mathare, it's 50 shillings an hour. For you to open a file, it's about 300. So 5 SOC, with 500 shillings, you can actually get therapy at Mathare. But many people don't want to go there. It has the best psychiatric support, a team who have the experience. I've been there a couple of times. It's a place which is clean, and anybody can actually go there. So there's this stigma around Mathare that it's a dirty place. It's not. I think we need to change that perception. I think Kenyans need to just subscribe to NHIF. Yeah. There's so many outlets. If you go to the NHIF website, you can see we are outlets which offer psychiatric support, from medicine, therapy. I think it's actually manageable.
And what about when it comes to specifically men? We know the suicide rate is 3 times that of women. And generally, because of how boys and men are conditioned, you don't talk about emotions. But in challenging that culture, how do you begin that? And I know you've been very open on social media and trying your best to break down those stereotypes when it comes to men and suicide and mental health. But what more can we do?
I think we need to get more men coming out. I think the more we get men boldly coming out, and we accept this, the way we accept cancer, we accept COVID, we need to accept mental health just as a disease as any other. And then also men find comfort in probably just going to have a drink with their friends but not speaking out. As opposed to women who normally share their frustrations. I think men need to form groups. We need to have more talks of men coming out and just supporting each other. And we are our own enemies. We laugh at each other. That you're a weakling. I mean, come on, how do you get depressed? As in, I've been told that enough times. As in, come on, have a drink and you'll feel okay. So I think we need to get men coming together. And the easiest way to actually beat some of these things is just exercising, where men can come together, go exercise, go for a jog together, go for a run together, and just, a group of men where we normally go for camping. We can go to a retreat in, like, let's say Masai Mara or some deep bush somewhere, sit in a campsite, and we just open up, share frustrations. And we find that your story is actually small, you hear another story. So I think it's time we as men, we speak out and become more bold in terms of seeking help and not just bashing each other.
And as we wrap up, because we talked about the family aspect, cultural, one that is still a sticking point, and you mentioned this, Major, is the law. As long as we criminalize suicide, it's going to make it incredibly difficult to come out and be open about this and to tackle it effectively. We have about a minute left, but what would you say in terms of really ensuring that is dealt with and addressed from the legal standpoint?
I wondered, where are we going wrong? What is it that is making us not pick up from, why are we not letting science inform us what we need to be doing in as far as addressing the runaway mental illness situation in this country? Why is science not guiding us? And what was interesting to me was that the study happened between 75 and 79, and then it was published in 83. Okay. But 1989 is when we got the Mental Health Act that criminalized
suicide.
Right. So I'm like, how is this possible? And it was put in the penal code, actually. So come, this late 2000s now to 2020 is when we are having the revision of the Mental Health Act. Right now it's in the Senate Committee for Health in the House. And they literally can't do anything about decriminalizing suicide because it's in the penal code. So that you understand the process that it would take to do that. So what I think that really needs to happen, even moving forward, is to allow history to inform us that there are certain things we have passed over, that we have ignored. And probably it's because when we've made these very important laws, policies, made decisions, we've not brought everybody to the table. Maybe that's what we need to start doing, bringing everybody to the table, understand that everybody has an important contribution to make. I wonder if Philista's study had been included when the Mental Health Act was being formulated, would we have a different outcome? And I believe so.
I must appreciate you for being committed to this cause. Hopefully it pays off.
It has to.
It pays off.
It has to. We'll see you next year, same time.
Hopefully with some improvements and a good report.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep the conversation going on social media, #Citizen Weekend. We have to keep talking about it until something changes.
Yep.